My brother Bart was diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, 5 years before he passed in April 26, 2022. He contemplated suicide on several occasions, stating, "Nobody should live like this." The family gathered together and told Bart, "Hang in there till you get into a care home. Things will get better," we hoped. Bart went into a care home in June 2021. 2 weeks before Bart passed, I received a phone call from my sister-in-law, Leslie. She said, "Pam, Bart is not doing well. Things look pretty gray." I was a bit confused and in shock. She didn't say any more. 5 minutes later, my brother Wayne phoned and said, "Pam, Bart is going to be dying through doctor-assisted death." He hung up the phone and said goodbye. I was still very confused and felt alone. I called my oldest brother, Bob. He's a stand-up guy. He would set me straight. Bob told me where, when, and how Bart was going to pass. It was going to be done at the care home. There was going to be a doctor and a nurse there, and it would take about 20 minutes. I thanked Bob, and I was very grateful for the truth. The family gathered, and friends also went to see Bart. They were coming and going, so I decided to wait a bit before going myself. 4 days before Bart passed, I went for a walk down the beach to meditate. It was a beautiful day, the sun was shining, and the sky was blue. I could feel the warmth on my face. It felt really good. And I wondered if someone from the care home could and would take Bart out to have that warmth on his face for one last time. I felt very connected to nature, and I was encouraged to go and see Bart. I phoned the care home and talked to the head nurse. She said, "Pam, you can come anytime." I said, "Okay." The next day I bought a bouquet of flowers that looked just like my mom's in the garden. They were very earthy looking. I also bought a meringue pie, just like my mom used to make. And I bought a card that had hummingbirds in the front. Bart liked hummingbirds. I went to the care home, asked for the head nurse, and she poked her head around the corner and said, "That's me." She said, "Just go upstairs, Pam." I felt a bit reluctant, so I asked her, "Would you mind coming with me?" She said, "Okay." So together we went up the elevator. When we got off the elevator, I still felt hesitant to go see Bart unannounced. So I asked the nurse, "Could you take the flowers, the pie, and the card, and then see if it's okay for me to come in and see him now?" She said, "Okay." So within 5 minutes, the nurse, I could see her hand waving, "Hey, Pam, come on down." Oh, I was so happy. And there was the excitement. My heart was pounding. I got to the door, and still in the hallway, there is a glass cabinet where people, patients, keep their mementos. There it was, black and white, a photo of Bart, Wayne, and me. Bart and Wayne were fraternal twins, 17 months older than me. We were like triplets. We had 3 other older siblings. Patty was the matriarch after my parents died, and she was the primary caregiver for Bart. As I gazed, looking at the photo, I started to tear up. So I told myself, "Don't cry, Pam, get it together, be tough for Bart." I composed myself, went into the room, and said, "Hello." I could hear Bart echo back, "Hello." I walked in a bit further. There he was, sitting on his hospital bed. The hospital bed was fairly large and took up most of the room. So I grabbed a kitchen chair and moved it to the door frame. We were probably about 6 inches apart. I was in a daze to see how frail and fragile his body was. He was sitting on the hospital bed. His legs were thrown over. His arms were very, very thin. They kind of draped alongside of him, and his long legs dangled off the bed. I quickly looked at Bart's eyes and made a strong connection. Bart had these puppy dog eyes, the kind of eyes like Al Pacino has, and the hair as well, like in the movie Serpico. Although he was very thin and his face was very drawn, his eyes were even more pronounced. I asked him if he was going to have the Lord's Prayer. Bart said no. I asked him if he was going to have any music. Bart said no. He was so matter-of-fact about the whole talking about dying. It was easy to talk about it. He blurted out, "Hey, I'm going to be getting 3 injections and it'll be in 5 minutes." I knew it was going to take longer, but I didn't say anything, so I just smiled. Then I asked if he wanted to have his body cleansed, and he said, "Oh yeah, once I die, they're going to clean my body before it goes to the funeral home." I had meant indigenous cleansing and smudging. I thought that would bring Bart closer to enlightenment and awakening before he passed. We chatted some more, and the time was clicking by fast. Before I knew it was about 2 hours. Bart was still sitting really straight. I wondered, how could he sit so straight for 2 hours and not complain? He was so stoic. I asked him if he wanted a blanket, because all he was dressed in was just his gray underwear. He said no. I said, okay. 2 hours had passed, and I said, okay, would it be okay if I come back and see you tomorrow? He said, sure, that would be good. I kissed him goodbye, gave him a hug, and I could feel his bones poking through his gray, transparent skin. I gave him another hug, and I was careful not to hug him too hard for fear of hurting him. We said our goodbyes, and then I left. It was another beautiful day. I picked up some dark chocolate for Bart. He liked that. I got to the care home, said hello to the head nurse, and went upstairs. I peered into the cabinet again to take another look at the picture of Bart, Wayne, and me. There we were. We still looked the same as well. I composed myself and knocked on the door. Patty opened the door, and I went in. Leslie was there as well. I sat beside Patty. Leslie was sitting beside Bart. Bart was reminiscing about his youth, and he looked like he was in good spirits. Nurses and care aides came in, wishing Bart a safe journey, farewell, and goodbyes. There was love and joy all around, and also a lot of compassion. The nurses and the care aides left, and we could see that Bart was getting tired. Besides, Stuart was going to come, my nephew, and so we wanted to give some time for Bart to rest. We were going to come back in an hour and a half to have a pizza party for Bart. That's what he wanted for his last meal. So we gave him a big hug and a kiss and left. Hour and a half passed, and we came back to the care home. This time I got to sit beside Bart in the pushwalker. I felt pretty good because I was very close to him. Patty and Leslie were sitting on the other side of me. We were now really laughing and joking, and everything seemed to be at ease. Patty started to pass out the pizza. Things became sobering then. Bart had to throw his left arm over to his right, pluck it up, and then swing the pizza into his mouth. It was quite laboring, but matter of fact as well, too. Like, he was very comfortable with the whole thing, which made it easy for everybody else. After pizza, Patty cut up and passed out the meringue pie that I had brought the day before. It was delicious. The meringue just melted in your mouth. The lemon custard was very tart and sweet. And the pastry was very crunchy. It was just spectacular, and a feeling and sense of home. After the pie, nurses and care aides came in. They said, "Bart, we're not going to be here tomorrow." So we thought we would just come in and say our goodbyes. Safe journey and safe trip. Bart, with a twinkle in his eye, smiled and said, "Yeah, I'm going to be getting an injection." The head nurse said, "Don't worry about that, Bart. Just relax." Then Bart smiled again and said, "I'm going to be going home to see my mom and dad." Everybody just smiled. Then again, he had a twinkle in his eye, looked at one particular nurse and said, "Hey, if you get a whisper, if you get a sort of a brush on your cheek, know that it's me." The nurses and the care aides kind of huddled together. You could see that they were emotional. They then said their last farewells and left the room. I wondered, again, why Bart was still in his underwear. And I thought, maybe he wants everybody to see how frail and fragile his body is. Have an understanding that it's okay to die. It's okay to pass. I'm ready. And I also reflected on my daughter the night before, Sashi. She had said, "Mom, maybe he's not in his body anymore." That made sense to me because Bart was certainly very, very comfortable with his body, with dying. He was very stoic about the whole situation. There was a knock on the door and a parcel. Patty got the parcel and kind of joked about, "Hey, this is for tomorrow." And Bart didn't even flinch. And then she opened it up. We didn't know what it was going to be, right? She opened it up, and it was medicine for that night and the next day. Patty said, "Hey, we're well past the visiting time, and we should probably leave." Bart let out a big sigh, like he didn't want the party to end. I thought to myself, "Hey, I'll stay all night if you want me to," but I didn't say it. So we all got up, said our goodbyes and hugs. I whispered in Bart's ear, "Safe journey, my angel," and then left. It was decided that Patty and Leslie would be attending the next day to assist Bart with any particular needs. I got up at 7 o'clock. It was another beautiful day for April. I felt like it was in a fog. The sun was shining through the window, and you could see the beams of light coming through. I kind of just stared at the light unseeingly for I don't know how long. Then I made myself a cup of coffee and did a light workout. Wayne called and said, "Hey, I'm going to say a prayer right at 11 o'clock. What about you?" And I said, "That sounds like a good idea. Let's both do it together." After the call from Wayne, I felt a sense of urgency and frantic to see Bart. I sent him a text saying, "Hey, I hope you had a good night's sleep. Just want to let you know I love you and that it's not too late for me to come over there. Wish you a happy journey. Love you and will be thinking of you." I went for a walk in the afternoon and I got a call from Leslie. She described exactly what went on that day. The nurse came in at 10 and asked Bart, "Is this what you want done?" Bart said, "Yep." The nurse started to put the IV in, get it prepped for the doctor. The doctor came in at 10:30, and he too asked Bart, "Is this something you want?" Bart said, "Yep." Okay. Leslie said the Lord's Prayer, and there was music in the background. There was a rock and roll band called The Heart. I smiled when I heard that and was very happy for him. Just as the procedure was to happen, the doctor leaned over Bart and whispered something in his ear. What? We don't know what it was. After, Leslie said Bart looked so peaceful and at rest. Later on that evening, I went for a walk along the beach to meditate. I reflected on Bart, and he will be remembered as a very courageous, strong, and empowering person to die on his terms. The sunset was remarkable. You could see the beams of light shining through the clouds on the western skies of Crescent Beach. I'd like to think and believe that was my brother saying, "Hello."